While you drink your morning coffee, official science feeds you another portion of fairy tales about great progress. But the reality is much more terrifying. We have been conditioned to believe in textbooks that are stitched together with such white threads that any person with the seeds of critical thinking would be horrified. Our entire history is not a chronicle of events, but a cheap, poorly rehearsed play. We are shown pictures of heroic Spartans who allegedly chopped enemies into mincemeat while flashing polished helmets, but at the same time, in light ladies' sandals on bare feet. Are you serious? Try running at least 100 meters over rocks in flip-flops while holding a bronze bucket on your head. No, this absurdity is just the tip of the iceberg. We are forced to believe in cities that rose from the mud and cathedrals built by yesterday's slaves using ropes and sticks. In reality, the foundation of our civilization hides secrets that would make an academic's hair stand on end. But the real horror begins not even on the fields of mythical battles, but right under your feet. Have you ever wondered what a common city sewer system actually hides, and why its existence completely negates everything you were told in school? Spartans in sandals on scorching rocks? Seriously? For decades, we have been fed movie pomposity, where muscular heroes hack away at enemies in light slippers. Try putting on a 12-kilogram bucket, taking a shield, and running through thorns. This is not an army, but a suicide squad with dislocated ankles after 50 meters. Official history takes us for idiots. Where did the ancients even get metal? They say they dug ore with wooden sticks. But to smelt a ton of copper, you need crucibles made of refractory materials, forced air furnaces, and coal. Historians paint blacksmiths in aprons, keeping silent about the giant industrial chains that could not have existed then. Where are the mines, waste heaps, and foundries? They don't exist. Museums hold helmets that look like factory stampings, not something hammered out on a knee between goat herding sessions. We are forced to believe in a Mercedes assembled in a garage with blue electrical tape, completely hiding the absence of a production base. If the Iron Age is just a performance, then what about their cities? If they couldn't cast a crucible for a sword, how did they lay underground what engineers spend years designing? Your toilet is the main witness in the case of the falsification of history. Your city did not grow from a village. It was brought and assembled like a giant construction set. The main evidence of this conspiracy is hidden in your toilet. Official history insists on the chaotic development of settlements, but logic says otherwise. It is impossible to lay a central sewage system under an already built metropolis. Either the drainage network is laid in empty ground according to a single plan, or the city drowns in waste within a week. The difference between a village and a city is not in the number of inhabitants, but in the engineering chasm. A village is a cluster of shacks, while a city is a complex mechanism with a circulatory system of communications. Ancient maps with their perfect avenues and network of tunnels prove that the infrastructure was created before the buildings. This requires knowledge of hydrodynamics and strength of materials, which peasants in bath shoes could not have possessed. A city is an artificial object inserted into the landscape according to a one-time project, not a product of evolution. To create such a flawless plan, tools are needed that were officially invented only a couple of centuries ago. Even an ordinary graphite pencil is a technological artifact that predates the era of the construction of ancient capitals. An ordinary wooden pencil is a high-tech artifact, exceeding in complexity everything attributed to the ancients. We are lied to, told that ancient architects drew masterpieces with charcoal on hides. Try to design a complex city sewage system with millimeter precision without proper tools. Any error would turn the city into a swamp. Without the industrial production of pencils and paper, the ancient world simply could not have existed. Creating a pencil is not a stick and wood, but a cycle of 86 operations lasting 2 weeks. You need calibration machines, vacuum chambers, 1,000-degree furnaces, and special glue. Where in history, textbooks are the pencil factories or pulp and paper mills? To build a single cathedral, thousands of sheets of drawing paper are required, the production of which involves complex chemistry and steam presses. Without industrial power, there is no blueprint, and without one, it is impossible to erect even a straight fence, let alone soaring domes. But even if we assume the tools fell from the sky, the main mystery remains. How do you bind a paper plan to the terrain using only a copper ruler? Reality requires technology about which official history prefers to remain silent. We are told that gargantuan cathedrals were erected by illiterate peasants for a bowl of pottage. Think about it. Assemble a crowd of men today with ropes and troughs. In a week, you would have a pile of corpses under the rubble, not Notre Dame. The official fairy tale of slave labor hides the truth. These buildings were assembled using technologies that we cannot replicate in the 21st century. Gothic vaults are pure mathematics in stone. The jewelry-like precision of the seamless masonry does not allow even a razor blade to pass through. How can the loads on flying buttresses be calculated without computers? An error of a couple of millimeters in the foundation would have collapsed the spire after 100 years. Yet they stand for centuries. Tales of cranes made of oak sticks and hemp ropes for lifting 10-ton statues 80 meters up are technical nonsense. Without hydraulics and steel, this is impossible. Cathedrals are objects of a different technological order. While the people supposedly died out from the plague, someone was conducting industrial stone mining and feeding thousands of workers. But if the buildings are a miracle, then the museum artifacts provoke only laughter. I personally held a knightly sword in my hands, and this discovery will forever change your perception of the heroic past. I committed a crime by stepping past the museum railing to touch the relics of the past. What I saw destroyed my faith in the official chronology. A knight's helmet, reputed to be the pinnacle of craftsmanship, turned out to be a crude likeness of a garden bucket. Historians forbid touching the exhibits not because of their fragility, but to hide the deception. This 10-kilogram helmet made of raw iron is a tool for fracturing cervical vertebrae, not combat protection. It is impossible to breathe in it, and you can see nothing, while any blow would turn your head into a clattering bell. A museum battle sword is simply a blunt iron strip half a centimeter thick that has never known sharpening. It is an imitation, not a weapon. The majority of artifacts are props from the 18th to 19th centuries, created to materialize a fictional era. Jeweled hilts and cannons with vignettes are kitsch that has nothing to do with the functionality of real war. We are being fed stage decorations instead of survival tools. If the weapons in museums are mere props, then how were the great conquests carried out? Next, we will dismantle the logistics of Alexander the Great's and Napoleon's campaigns, proving their technical impossibility. Alexander the Great and Napoleon conquered countries not through strategic genius, but in the imagination of historians. Turn on a calculator. Any supply officer will confirm that such campaigns without railroads and trucks are fantasy. Official military history ignores logistics and food, drawing only pretty arrows on maps. An army of 100,000 men means tens of thousands of horses, each of which needs 7 kilograms of oats and 40 liters of water per day. Supply by wagons is a mathematical dead end. Over a 200-kilometer journey, a horse eats its entire cargo. For a 1,000-kilometer campaign, millions of wagons on non-existent roads are needed. A single army drinks an entire lake in a day, turning the banks into a quagmire. Without canned food and fuel tankers, moving such masses is technical suicide. Alexander's soldiers would have become mummies in the desert after 3 days. The myths of great campaigns were created only to justify borders. But if these conquests are a fairy tale, then what about the Conquista? How did a handful of Spaniards on wooden ships seize a continent? The sailing fleet of the past hides a lie even more shameful than the tactics textbooks. A couple of hundred ragamuffins on leaky tubs conquered a continent and taught Spanish to millions of Indians? If you believe this, you have been deceived. The official saga of conquistadors in shining cuirasses conquering Aztec empires crumbles at the first encounter with logic and physics. To hold America, build it up with cities, and change the cultural code of the population, resources are needed that 16th century Spain, exhausted by wars, simply did not have. It is impossible to transport thousands of soldiers, horses, cannons, and tons of gunpowder across the ocean on tiny sailing ships. The main question: how to deliver construction materials for hundreds of cities that sprang up in the jungles? Such colonization would require a fleet of millions of vessels cruising for decades. Paradox: today we cannot create an exact working copy of a sailing ship from that time. The technologies are allegedly lost. The real scale of colonization requires 21st century level logistics. Diseases, climate, and the numerical superiority of the locals would have ground the invaders to dust in a week. But in books, they win and build universities. This is not history, but a report on a virtual victory. Why does the past shine with greatness, while our present is just cheap plastic? The answer is simple. We are strangers at this celebration of life, and between us and the ancestors lies a chasm. We conquer space, and manage neural networks, but we live in ugly concrete boxes that crumble after 30 years. Why did the ancients erect masterpieces for the ages, while we produce disposable trash? The fairy tale that we are the pinnacle of evolution collapses when comparing an ancient portico to a shopping mall made of sandwich panels. We are not being led toward progress. We are being purposefully lowered to the depths of primitivism. The gap between the past and the present is a total technological and aesthetic capitulation. We are lied to, told that the secrets of Stradivari or the casting of Damascus steel were simply lost. How could a humanity with ultra-precision machines forget how to build beautifully and forever? We are witnessing rapid degradation. We have replaced stone with toxic plastic and moldings with gray concrete. We create things programmed to break. If we were the descendants of those builders, we would be perfecting the craft, not slapping together soulless human coops. The chasm is so deep that the conclusion is obvious. We have no connection to those creators. The majestic past is not our history, but the stage sets of a previous version of reality. Prepare for the most shocking part, the theory of a global reset of our matrix. Your world is not the cradle of civilization, but a hard drive that is periodically formatted. The global reset theory is the only logical answer to why the past looks like a divine revelation, while the present looks like a scrap heap of props. Our reality is a closed system where a reset occurs upon the critical accumulation of errors, wars, and degradation. At the moment of the reset, everything temporary crumbles into dust, but the cathedrals and palaces remain. These objects are immutable system files, creations of a higher order, not subject to decay. We did not build them. We colonized them. We entered empty, majestic cities with ready-made marble and sewage systems, and then feverishly invented a history and great architects for ourselves so as not to go mad from our own worthlessness. We are merely new tenants in someone else's abandoned house. If we are not the creators of this reality, then who are we? Why do the conditions of existence more closely resemble torture? Prepare for the final revelation. We will deconstruct the concept of the proving ground and find out which corner the true masters of this world have put us in. The word polygon is not a technical term, but a sentence passed upon each of us. The entire planet is a giant polygon where we are trained, stripped of our true power, and told that we are merely accidental mold on a stone ball. We were forced to forget that we are fallen gods, turned into inmates of a prison world. Let's dissect the word. Greek poly, many, and gonia, angle, corner. In sacred geometry, the angle was a portal to superpowers, but the masters of reality declared their use a crime. Those who remembered the truth were called ugolovniki, criminals/corner people, and began to be judged by the ugolovny, criminal corner code. From childhood, we are taught to fear by being put in the corner when we misbehave. We became a crowd that gonit, talks/drives, nonsense, having lost the connection with divine resonance. One does not live on a proving ground. One undergoes trials here. Wars, diseases, and injustice are simulators squeezing out the remains of spiritual resistance. We are prisoners in someone else's stage sets. But every prison has a weak spot. Are you ready to hear the final word that will become the key to escaping this digital hell? Everything you have learned is the key to your cell that was lying under the rug. Escaping the proving ground begins not with storming the walls, but with refusing to believe the lies from pretty textbooks. We have traveled the path from a Spartan's sandals to the realization of the planet as a penal colony. We were fed fairy tales about monkeys in space so that we would forget our true nature. But reality is cracking. Impossible cathedrals and prop weapons scream that we are temporary tenants in someone else's world. We are tested with pain as a simulator for the spirit. A prison is strong as long as the inmate considers it home. Impossible cities that appeared out of nowhere are merely stage sets in this global experiment. The truth is that the system fears your questions more than any rebellions. The masks are off. You have a choice. Return to TV shows in a concrete box, or start asking questions to which the Matrix has no answers. Are you ready to take the first step toward a true awakening?